Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Core New Core, my patrons, Clayton, Ruby, and Stephanie, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor or student. Just 3 things on my list today. Yesterday's email, today's email, and hanging down. So, in the email that I sent out, there's a picture of the same student in the open leg rocker, one with what I see as linear tension, meaning arms are straight out to the open leg rocker, and regardless of what other dynamics are there, it's a straight arm. And in the other picture, it's not a straight arm. And because of that, it's more dynamic because the end point of tension at the elbow is part of it. And instead of just trying to make a line of tension in a line, the hands on legs are part of trying to stimulate more uniform engagement of the musculature than just linear. More whole body, more uniform. And so when you look at or see or feel in your own movement, is this a straight line? And to what extent am I happy with that? Or is that what I want versus something else? And so Contrology develops the body uniformly. The whole target is whole body. And in doing something whole body is something beyond what I would consider to be just a linear engagement of tension. Number 2 is today's email, and that's titled Get Real. Get Real. And it's meant to be a statement about MMP Pilates being a point of view that tries to deal with what's real, or tries to look at Pilates from the reality of what we know about biology and physics. And so that's why there's a graphic of DNA, and that's why there's a graphic of an atom or molecule or something, but you know. For as rich as the tapestry is in the Pilates culture, for making Pilates whatever you want it to be, right? My aim is to share a point of view with you and to say it looks at Pilates through the eyes of biology and physics. And there's a lot of Pilates that has very little to do with or interest in those subjects when it comes to either their practice of or their teaching of Pilates. You know, it's a really broad spectrum. The key thing is that it is a spectrum and that together we're all part of the same team. Okay, so number 3. So hanging down refers to a movement pattern, an exercise on the Cadillac, on the Pilates Cadillac. And if you just say, okay, Google, or however you do Siri, and say Michael Miller Pilates Cadillac, the very first link is the list of all the exercises that link to pictures that show them. Sometimes video, but not that often. So I forget that it's out there, and I encourage you to see if, I've accumulated enough patrons to keep my website going. Because as a resource, it came in handy when, again, what am I doing? I'm looking at social media, and I see someone do some movement on the Cadillac. And I'm not sure if they actually called it the hanging down or not. What I do know is if you go to Michael Miller Pilates Cadillac and look at the pull-up / hanging down, you'll see a sequence of pictures that show the movements of that exercise as I learned it from Ramana. That's not saying it's Joe's original work, but it is saying that it was from the premier person of people that worked with Joe, in my mind, simply because she occupies the most footage of film that he took. Maybe somebody else thought they knew better, which they may have, but the embodiment that Joe put in front of the lens, in any event, from that lineage, I get this sequence of exercises that are documented at hermit.com. Now, I say there's always three ways to do something. There's Joe's way, there's the ideal way, and then whatever way. Okay? As a means of distinguishing ways of doing something. Now, I don't know if that was Joe's way of doing it, but it seemed like it was Ramana's way of doing it, and I seemed to be learning something that was well rooted in her takeaways from Pilates, from Joe. In any event, hanging down starts where you put one leg in the swing, and then you bend the supporting knee so that you're hanging into a V from the beginning, and put the secondary leg that bent to let you down into the V up into the swing. So there's the down of hanging down. From there, flexing the knee, I do it 3 times, but flexing the knee in and out is just the choreography. Then from that up to straight. And then in straight, pull-ups. And then from straight, extension. And then I would imagine back to straight and then back down into the down stretch. Oh, see, okay. So that's the down stretch. And then in a repeat of the first pattern, when you're straight, you add to it a leg at 90 and a rotation of the twisting the leg or twisting in torsion along the axis of your spine, ideally with your leg at 90 degrees to optimize the leverage of that angle. And having done one leg and then the other, well, see, and the choreography goes on into facing down and walking out and coming back up and retaining your grip on the bars to see. There's a lot of choreography to it. And that was just the way it was taught, and that's what it was. As opposed to the hanging up. See, in the hanging down, you're face up, hanging your bottom down in gravity. In the hanging up, which is a much harder exercise, you're face down, prone, in space, trying to support your line as you go out and in or up and down. The upstretch on the Cadillac is like the long stretch when you take your grip from below you and put it above you. If you follow that. So, what I see as an example that has some good control in it goes into a straight body. Actually, I don't want to misquote the order, but the sequence left out the down part of hanging down. And I think when the pull-ups happened were different than the sequence that exists in my documentation. But you check it out, see? You look at it, and then before even getting to viewing the movement and seeing what happened with it, the title had to do with distinguishing this as about the upper body. From the MMP point of view, it's a whole body thing. We're after uniform engagement. To even address the body in pieces and parts is antithetical to what you're really after in the pursuit of the effort. Okay. So, and then with some control, straight and then pull-ups, I don't know. See the order. To me, the lack of the order, the lack of the down part of the hanging down. See, why does it make sense and what are you doing? So that's what I want you to know. When you go and look at those pictures, there's Joe's way, which is at least Ramana's way, and that's how I learned it as just as what's called the hanging down, and this is the pattern of movement that is made up of. And then I tried to document that as well as I could, and it's there at the website. And then there's whatever other way there is, because there are so many other ways. All I know is what I learned from Ramana, and when I tried to document off of that, because I don't recall any original work or documentation of activity on the Cadillac than from people that passed on what they knew. No Joe words, Joe pictures, or Joe film. Okay? To me, that's the original work of Joe, his art. I know there's a lot of other stuff, and he worked with a lot of people, but all of that has the advantages and limitations of that means of communicating and coming to an understanding. So, just in a title about something demonstrated and being told this is about your upper body, within the whole body approach to Pilates seems contradictory or much better effort could be made at pointing out how whole body the effort is than trying to specify it to a particular part of the body. Because, you know, the hanging down is a whole body exercise. All right, so in passing on or trying to document the classical work, or what I learned as hanging down, it made me think about, well, why is the down part matter, and what is that relative to the rest of the exercises and the order that they're in? Does the hanging down pattern represented in the pictures that I didn't make up, I got that from Ramana, does that reflect the stated ideal of MMP point of view? And so there in the hanging down part, you're in flexion and you're in release, really. You're trying to let go and get a deeper grip here. And the first thing that happens is you let everything go down to release in that area. Because, fill in this sentence, in order to be eccentric, it has to start at ease. And so the hanging down part is this hanging down at ease. Letting things all relax and then from there, the initiation of bending the knees is an engagement of the core. If you wanted to make that more intense, get a block wide enough that a person while they're hanging can not only be bending their knees in, but also squeezing their legs together. Because this is the point. The core. The condition of grip that you're seeking to get a tighter handle on. So 3 knee bends in to tighten that grip, to then do what? Out of flexion, where do you come? To extension. And a very special kind of extension, which is a straight line, right? Oh, so the chance to actually come to a straight line and linger there in its expression lends nothing but more authority to whatever you're trying to represent as straight, as being intentional. Double play on words. From straight, it's look ma, I can hold straight and do pull-ups. And then it's, to me, progressive. I think I've got this right. I'm probably saying it all wrong. But then from the straight, from the pure extension of straight, and I consider that because if bending forward in the spine stretch is flexion, then when you're coming out of flexion, you're extending. Okay? But you don't get out of flexion until you hit a straight line. So that's when it sort of becomes extension, and then beyond that is more extension. And that's just the way I look at it. It's nothing official or scientifically based. It's a nomenclature for myself to understand the difference between flexion and extension. And in my case, coming out of flexion is extending, and when you hit a straight line, you are in extension. And when you go beyond that, it's more of what you've already established. It's sort of like extension literally just means like this, right? So that's why the extension comes in then. And there's such an opportunity to show off points on a curve. It's not a yoga neck. It's not salute to the whatever with your head cranked back and your neck exposed. Coordinate tension between the ears and the shoulders is Pilates because it's uniformly engaging the body. And it does it by oppositional rotation between axes. And so after the extension, then what comes is rotation. And so the progressive pattern of movement that is in the definition of the ideal in Pilates, the definition is uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. Those progressive pattern of movement is flexion, extension, side bending, rotation, and torsion. And my point is that when you look at the stuff that's just being passed down as historical reenactment, much, if not all of it, mirrors what we see consistent in the other work, which is uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. And that progressive pattern is flexion, extension, side bending, rotation, and torsion. And that's just a fundamental homage to the nature of the reality that we're trying to survive in. And it's not just to pay honor to it as a homage, it's out of the necessity of being able to move within the space that we're capable of. I like that. Being able to move within the space that we're capable of. And Pilates says, oh, here we are, 3D space, then we are, and here we are as very sophisticated organisms that have a rotational capacity to move through space. So after being in plane, taking a great grip or developing a great grip here, going to straight, and I'm talking about face up, hanging in the Cadillac, right? And then being able to hold straight when you further articulate it by articulating at the end point at the elbow, not shown in the trademark, right? But an end point of tension, because it's an axis of rotation. It's a place where tendons connect muscles to bone. Or is that tendons and... I think I said that wrong. Something connects muscles to muscles and something connects muscles to bones. But in any regard, all that connectivity stuff, we're after exerting ourselves as optimally as possible in the embodiment that we're capable of. So even in a sequence of movements like the hanging down on the Cadillac, there is the pursuit of exerting the ideal, or So I don't know how you can just lumber through this exercise without having a level of understanding to it, that the hanging down part is this big release that lets you let stuff go in your pelvis, to where then you take control and flex at the knees, maybe with adductors happening as well, but you develop control here first, come up to flat second, demonstrate ability to hold the line through pull-ups third, take on extension beyond straight, because you're staying in plane and doing that, And then from there, where might you go? Well, into torsion, or I consider it torsion on the spine, with pulling one leg up and taking it over. And as an instructor, you're out on thin ice, so you better be sure of yourself if you're taking someone into that. And if you're trying to do that, what's the one thing that determines how long to try or when to stop? It's not when you need air. It's before the grip in your hand gives out. Because when you're holding yourself up, even partially, from the grip in your hand, that only lasts for so long, right? Having made that point, I'm hoping to point to you that what comes right out of classical work, as I documented at hermit.com, michaelmillerpilates, Cadillac, the list, and look for pull up, hanging down. Those are the two names I knew it under. And look at the pictures and ask yourself if they make sense according to what MMP sees as an ideal within the work. And at least in terms of progressive pattern of movement, right? Flexion, extension. What's missing? Well, not too much side bending in that arena, is there? Not at least from the tradition. And perhaps for good reason. Because going from in plane with all of that, and then taking that to torsion on the spine, and I haven't even talked about that. The hanging down with twist is one of the most delicious exercises because of how close the torsion appears in near and around the core. To do hanging down and be hanging down and trying to do this without holding a straight line in your body is missing the point of Pilates, where in your spine you're going that way, from ears, depends, ankles probably, maybe metatarsals, but strong, and you're going that way. And it's holding the line off of which you bend one leg and challenge or provide torsion to let your body sink down while you're applying the wrench is to lose so much of what's possible in the dynamic. Just a wrench on a nut, and it can fit right or it can be off at a weird angle. And you get the same kind of results with your wrench and the nut as you do with maintaining straight when you take a leg over to make rotation. You could do a whole video on just spotting that exercise to facilitate the release that it's meant to be. I'm talking about with the twist. And then going to hands down and off and into other things, and then returning out back to that and coming up to face up to either continue to the other side or dismount, give your hands a rest, and then pursue the other side when ready. So what point am I trying to make? All kinds, I think. As a Pilates instructor and you want to survive and you see stuff that's out there, I'm sharing with you that I saw some movement, it was nice and it was controlled. And if I were the instructor, I would add the hanging down part because I'd have a reason that I'd wanted to find release before engaging the core. And then the knee bends that come after that are developing a stronger, deeper grip at the core. Before coming out of that, further away from center, loading. To hold, or to find and hold a straight line. Moving within that midline to the point of pull-ups and then further extension. But having your head in a position that demonstrates core new tension between ears and shoulders, not some artistic expression, that is an improvisation of what I think you're seeking to do as an ideal. So it's not just about whole body. It's about not just about the upper body, it's about upper body. What a mindset. It's not the MMP mindset, because the MMP mindset is whole body. And from that mindset, you get into unlocking your knees and establishing endpoints at metatarsals. And you get into putting your head where it most belongs on a contiguous curve between hips, shoulders, and ears. And I happen to think that to the extent that those 3 points line up at all somewhere on the catenary curve, you're overall stronger because of it. So those 3 points appearing somewhere on the catenary curve facilitates holding up the load of your body, which is why the catenary is the shape of the St. Louis Arch, for the efficiency of holding up that much weight. It comes out that the catenary does the job. So that's maybe more information than you were looking for, but and so the more you know about the ideal, the better you are able to distinguish it from anything else. Because at least you know what the ideal is supposed to be. Or that if there is an ideal, then there is something to it. And with MMP, it's an experience. And so, number one, the dynamic between endpoints is happening in maybe I would say isometric ways. Nodding to Krista. What she's talking about, maybe, I don't know. And I don't want to put words in her mouth. But the way the body engages itself, one of which is to engage in core new tension, to efficiently carry the load of the body through space. And to do that takes more than linear engagement. It takes dynamic engagement. the Get Real MMP point of view. Real is the MMP point of view. There's a broad spectrum of Pilates that has nothing to do with reality or any interest in that. That's part of culture. This broadcast is meant to help you understand a point of view that there's a theory about an ideal within Joe's work. That theory assumes there's something to it in and of itself, that there's an ideal in there somewhere, based on Joe's definition, his promise, and his sequence. So in the hanging down, with twist even, when that sequence of hanging down, when you're doing that, you're repeating the same pattern that's fundamental through the rest of Joe's work, which is flexion extension. There's no side bending here. It doesn't fit. Sort of like there's no side bending in stomach massage. It doesn't fit. But after you've done flexion and extension as positions in the body in stomach massage, it then goes to rotation. So try using Google or Siri and ask for any exercise about Pilates by saying, okay Google or hello Siri, and say Michael Miller Pilates, Cadillac, down stretch. Now the first thing that comes up won't be those pictures, it'll be the list of all of the exercises on the Cadillac that you then click on the one you want to see the pictures for. What a resource. And if you use that or try that and see that's of value, then go to patreon.com and become a patron of mine. Or better yet, go to my Bitcoin address and share a few coins. Contribute a few coins. To what? To me keeping that website going. Because now after I've had my say about what, from my point of view, the hanging down is about, and that I got it from a pretty aristocratic source as a thing, as a pattern of movement you do on a piece of equipment. There are many others, but the hanging down the Cadillac, it's there, and part of the MMP website. How many other places can you go and get the same kind of information for free? Well, it's not free if I'm asking you to support it. So there's the hook. Today, 9:44, just went by. Oh, it's 11:20 already. In about an hour from now, in a week, I'll be headed toward the Hotel Boulderado for brunch on the veranda. I'll be up at Lost Gulch Overlook with fingers crossed and everything going right at 9:54 for the convention. It's weird having an expectation of something. like anything, like you plan a party or you plan a convention. But the MMP convention is planned specifically for a specific time, and it's the time at which something happens in terms of movement. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Evaluate points of view. And then add 2 to 2 for your value. And direct your thinking. For if you don't, others surely are. And Geist.